Good evening. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is SK Shlomo. We are live. This is We Are Listening. Welcome to the show. If you've ever watched We Are Listening before, you'll know this is my monthly live stream where I get to talk about creativity and mental health. But this is a very, very special episode. Not only is it our 10th episode, it's our very first live episode. Everybody say hello to the live crowd. Hello.
Hello, live crowd.
Got a real audience here in London at StarLane Pizza Bar. Everyone's enjoying their pizza and getting ready for this really beautiful event, which is really beautiful for me. It's very special for me because it is an album listening party. So I don't know if you know this, but I released an album about 3 weeks ago. It's called Surrender, and the stories behind that album are all about recovery and about mental health and about this whole journey that I've been on. So what better way to have episode 10 of this show than to have a listening party, listen to the music, talk about the stories. And I've got a very, very trustworthy companion to help me kind of go through this process.
We'll see.
Someone I've known for a long time and who loves music and who can kind of really understand where I'm coming from. Can you please go crazy for Mr. Marcus Brigstocke?
Hello. Good evening.
In a minute, I'm going to hand over to Marcus, but before we do that, I just want to say, please join in this conversation. You are online right now. I want to see your questions, comments, thoughts. Comment them on there. Use the hashtag We Are Listening. Please share this feed if this means something to you. And everybody in the room, you guys are also encouraged to be part of this. Ask questions, be part of it. Make noise, be silly, whatever it is you want to do. Chomp on your pizza. And yeah, that's all I've got to say. Let's get on with it. So I'm going to hand over to my good friend Marcus. Marcus Brigstocke, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey. Thanks for having me here, Flo. And firstly, man, congratulations on making an album. And it's really good as well, which I think it's a relief when a friend makes a thing and they're like, here's my thing. And you're like, oh, please let this be good. Yeah, right. Because if it isn't good, it can be really awkward. It's great, man. It's really lovely. And some of it's really moving. Which for dance music, or, what do we say now? Electronic music, right? That's not always an achievable thing. Yeah, but it moved me. So, but more importantly, how are you?
I'm all right, man. Yeah.
No. How are you? Or I'm all right, man. That's how men answer men. This is this event. How are you?
I'm all right.
There we go. That's closer to it. Good.
I'm alive.
Yeah.
I've got
good.
Oxygen in my lungs.
Yep.
I've got lots of people who love me, and I love me, so I'm okay. I'm all right.
That sounds good.
How about you?
Yeah, I am. I'm well. That's easier to answer. I'm well. I'm physically quite well.
Good.
And I'm. Where am I? I sort of feel a bit creatively adrift at the moment, even though I'm quite busy. I'm used to having a range of things lined up that spread off into the distance, and I've got some projects I'm working on right now, and after that, the chasm of absolute nothingness, which ought to be a delight, right? The blank space, fill that with the things that we make, ought to be a delight, and yet weirdly, after 20-something years of experience, it still holds lots of fear for me.
Well, yeah, when your destiny is and your income and your ability to provide for your family revolves around you're
making it
not
worse.
Having any nothingness.
No, but that's exactly those are the fears. That's
not
exactly
having nothingness in that mix, can you?
No, exactly. But then at the same time, leaving space for the next thing you're going to make. That's what I'm always saying with friends of mine. Our job is making things. Our job is not how they're received. Our job is not even the money we get for them. Our job is nothing other than our job is making things, right? Mm-hmm. So when I say congratulations on making an album, it seems maybe to some people like that's glib or it's what you say out of politeness, but really a body of work. That's extraordinary. It's amazing. It really is. It takes, why don't you tell us what it took? Because I haven't made an album, so I haven't got a clue.
It took, it's been my dream for about 16 years I've been trying to do it. And every time I tried to do it, I was like, this isn't right, or I'm not enough, or I'm not good enough. Or there's this reason why I can't do it yet. When I get good enough at being a producer, or when I get good enough at being a singer, or when I get, when I've got time. And it's it took everything. Honestly.
So did you reach a point where you were good enough at those things, or did you reach a point where you thought, that's none of my business whether I'm good enough and make it anyway?
it reached a point where I couldn't not do it anymore. Like it was getting.
Oh, okay.
Although the process of making the record, did involve me getting quite sick. Like I would have got way more sick if I carried on not doing it. And doing what I thought everybody else wanted me to do.
Sick because you had to go a long way into the creative process, dig deep, and all the rest of it, or sick in other ways? What happened?
Well, I stopped touring for the first time in my adult life. Like, how long have you known me? You've known me decades.
Yeah, a long time, man. Yeah, more than 10 years. Yeah.
I wouldn't go a week without a show pretty much throughout my entire adult life. I would just be on stage. It's just what I do. And then I was like, no, I can't keep touring and try and get this album done. So I came off the road, and that's when my world kind of started crashing around me.
So when you stopped getting the affirmation and the buzz and the adrenaline from performing, what happens to you? Where'd you go?
I went to a bad place.
This got heavy real quick, didn't it? That was my aim. Let's be honest about this stuff.
I got into a bad way really quickly. Well, that's it. I mean, I've just done this TED Talk where I tell the whole story, and in the TED Talk I say in the first 5 days I wrote 5 sick tracks, and I was like, I'm a fucking genius.
Yeah.
And then on the 6th day, like, it just wouldn't come, and I was left feeling like, if I can't do this, if I can't even write songs, then what can I do? What value do I have in this world? So self-esteem is a tricky one. Do you know what I mean? Especially
if the esteem, be it genuine self-esteem or ego, which are two distinct things, I think. If the genuine esteem is fed by making something good, offering a piece of work out to the audience and enjoying in a healthy way the response they have, there's also the ego version, which is, look at me, aren't I amazing? Right? But when the esteem is connected to that process and the process stops, I mean, I found this when I wrote a book some years ago, and I got sick then, and partly I was making a lot of bad choices in my life, but also I had to really face up when that process was finished to the truth of it, which was that, sure, I could create something, I could write a book, but actually no one claps when you finish a paragraph.
Yeah, right.
There was no one there, and I kept finishing these blocks of work, and then there was the nothing that I'd become quite dependent on, you know?
Yeah.
So,
especially because, like, stand-up, you know, what you do, like, you get that feedback after pretty much every line.
It's real quick. You know if you're not doing a good job. If they're not laughing, you have ruined it.
So, yeah, I guess the book is a similar thing to the album. It's like, well, I don't know if this is good. 10 minutes ago, I thought this was the best thing that had ever been created, and now I don't think I ever want to hear it again. And it's like, how do you cope with that? Like,
but where are you at now? So now we're, 3 weeks since the album?
Play a track and I'll tell you.
All right. All right. Well, I was actually working towards that. I'm going to start at the end of the album with... The album's called Surrender. And
I'm just going to start at the end.
Yeah, I'm going to start with Surrender, the final track on the album, because it's my second favourite. So let's play it. Have a
Judgment is now being ranked. Thank you.
That's great, man. That's great. So surrender's what cowards do, right? Giving up, putting their hands up. Is that what that is?
Fuck.
I'm asking that question so you can say, no, Marcus, it isn't. It's about something else. But why surrender? What does that mean to you?
Well,
surrender from what?
I feel like when you're fighting it, when you're fighting yourself, you can't get better. So the damage that I was suffering when I couldn't work and I couldn't tour and I couldn't hardly leave my house was self. It was from fighting myself, from trying to tear myself in two. So in the end, I had to just put the white flag up and say, I can't beat you, Shlo. I can't defeat you.
So does that mean then effectively like getting out of your own way? I mean, you've described a bit like giving up the fight against yourself. Is that getting out of your own way? Is it letting go of the outcome of what you're making? Like, how does it feel when you realise like it's not about fighting, but actually about letting the whole thing go? Like, what specifically are you letting go of, and how does it feel once you've achieved that?
I think by the time I wrote that track is the end of the album. And it's amazing that you wanted to play it first, because it's the one that is nothing like the rest of the album. Like, I didn't put any other solo piano tracks on the album. But by the time I got around to writing that, I'd definitely made peace. And I'm talking about internally. So like when I was in my worst place, and I got a lot of help. I went and got professional help, and I learned how to do this. I started tracking what the hell was going on in my head. Like what kind of language I was using in my head, and it was brutal. I was absolutely, like, violently destroying myself internally in a way that if somebody else spoke to me, it would be absolutely considered to be abuse. It would be horrific. It would be hate crime. Yeah. And by noticing that and thinking, okay, is that helpful? And like gradually through cognitive CBT and things like this, I learned that I was doing it, and then by the time I come around to writing the track Surrender, like I'd switched that over a whole year of daily practice of being like, no, I am okay, I am good enough, and I do love you, and you do deserve to be alive, and like that takes a lot of time to undo, like basically what had been an entire adulthood of self-hate.
I think that cannot be stated enough. I really do. And one of the mantras I live by is you don't think your way into a new way of living, you live your way into a new way of thinking, right? It's about, for me, it's about what I do. It's about the action that I choose to take. So if the action is doing the fight with myself in my own head, or continuing those narratives in which, not good enough, or the work isn't good enough, I'm not good enough, I am my mistakes, whatever those narratives are, you keep repeating those, then that is who you are. And actually making a choice to proactively change them, it is this lumpen thing where you're like, you are good enough, I do love you, and it's very pointed and feels very strange and a bit,
you have to force it
a bit
first.
Heavy. Yes, exactly, because it's a change of direction. That's why I wanted to start with the track Surrender, because I recognise, firstly, I love how you play that. I think it's very, very beautiful, and I love the tension and release in it as well. There seems to me like a moment right up towards the end where all of this tension and stillness is this tension is let go into a moment of release. It's great. Thanks, man. Beautiful piece of work. That's all right. I have no idea if I understood it, but that's what I took from it. Well, that's the point, isn't it? Because someone said to you they thought that was very sad, and that's not a sad track for you at all.
No,
right?
Like for me, that's a really joyous track. But every time I play it, Michelle, my partner, she's like, "That's a really sad song." I'm like, "Well, it kind of is, but also for me, it's really joyous. Like it's super emotional for me, but it's definitely it's an up." So.
Yeah, absolutely. I was mentioning to you before, I remember years ago saying to someone how important Everybody Hurts by R.E.M. was for me. And they were like, oh, no wonder you're sad all the time. You listen to sad songs. And I'm like, no, for me, that's not about sadness. That's about recognizing exactly the very simple sentiment expressed by Michael Stipe. Like, everybody hurts. And as soon as you recognize that, like, it doesn't have to be that joins you up with other people. You recognize that, and then you're like, oh, okay. Well, this is all right then. We're all just muddling through, aren't we? It's great, man. It's great. Now, I want to play Look Away next, but I wonder whether I'd like to know. Not I wonder. I would like to talk about Look Away, the title, and the story that led you to write that piece of music.
Okay, Look Away. I mean, it's called Look Away, but it should be called Don't Look Away. That's kind of what the lyric says. And I feel like what happens is we do the worst damage when we're pretending it's not happening. And this goes for when we're damaging ourselves, when we're damaging other people, or we're allowing other people to do damage and we're just looking the other way. And it happens on a tiny scale and it happens on a global scale. And for me, like, this song was a real mantra. And there's, for me, like, for a lot of my songs, I have like a real clear story, like a really clear, almost like a film playing in my head. And this song, you'll hear the lyrics in a sec, but it actually tells a story of me. Okay, I've got to tell you the full story. Like, as I, at the beginning of this stream, we spoke about how when I stopped touring, I kind of plummeted into a really bad way emotionally. And that led me to go and get help. And when I got help, I was told that I was now being treated for PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress. And it's like, okay, what trauma have you been through? And for me, I had this experience when I was 4 years old that I hadn't really ever spoken to people about. And I had a near-death experience. And one of the only memories I had was being trapped at the top of the stairs. And I was in too much pain to be able to make a sound and get help. And part of the process of healing was me sitting my parents down and finding out, you know, what really happened, because this was 30 years ago. And this song, the story that I saw in my head before I wrote it was about my kind of adult self rescuing that 4-year-old. So I have this character that I invented during the process of this story. He's me, but he's a bit older and he's a bit wiser. He's called Silver. And he's fucking badass. He's just he can just cope. He's so kind. He's got time for everyone. He's got energy for everyone. And he has got a lot of time and energy for that little version of me who's 4 years old. And I sometimes still get stuck there. And this is a symptom of PTSD. You have flashbacks. You can't get yourself out of them. And Silver is always the one who, inside my kind of narrative, scoops me up when I'm a little kid and I can't cope. And he gives me a big hug and he tells me it's going to be all right. And that's what happens in this song. And all he says is don't look away. Trapped in a box, locked in a rhythm, stuck behind the bars of his own beat. The boy holds his breath, not understanding what it means. It's okay, he says his brother. Don't look away. Breathe into your veins. Don't look away. No one to blame. All the pain. Look shade right in the face.
silent scream, stuck above forever, never to be seen. Silver is his cry, picks up one piece by his side, and now we'll place down another, and another, and another, and another. Don't look away. Breathe, breathe into your veins. Don't look away. No, no, no one to blame. Hold the pain. Look shame right in the face. Open eye and say yeah. Don't look away. Don't look away. No, 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 no one to blame. Hold the pain. Look shame right in the face. Open eye and say yeah. Don't look away. Don't look away. Don't look away. Don't look away.
Put it down.
Yes, on now. Congratulations, man. That's great.
Thank you,
That's
man.
great. You didn't collaborate much on the album, right? You made this mostly on your own. All right.
Yeah, I made this in isolation. It was almost like a,
Why?
challenge. I don't know. I had something to prove, I guess, to myself.
Oh, to who? To you?
Yeah, to myself. Like, there's some collaborations on there. There's 2 tracks that feature Lost Raven, who,
Yeah.
if you guys know who Lost Raven is, you know why she's so special. That's my partner who, during the process of me making my album, she finally stopped deleting her music and decided to be an artist, and that's really great. And there's one other collaboration on there with London Contemporary Voices, who are an amazing choir. Yeah, they're so great. And they sang on the second last track on the album. And the other collaborator is in the room right here, Dom Howard, who mixed the whole record with me.
Oh, let's give it up for Don Howard, ladies and gentlemen. Great job, man. Fantastic. And you
Dom's-
mixed it here?
Yeah, this is the studio complex where Dom mixed it, and there's 40 studios here. So, and he took me for a pizza here in the pizza bar, and he was like, "You should do the
You should do
listening
it
part
here.
So,
Yeah.
big up." But Dom had a real big influence on it because I kind of came to him with the early tracks, and I was like,
Yeah.
"I want to mix these. I don't know where I'm going with them. I don't know what I'm doing." He was like, "Just keep going. You got something here. Just keep at it." And then, he was a big influence. So but apart from that, it was just me.
Yeah. So that drop off from performing loads, being out there, the energy of giving out to a crowd what they give back to you, working with other people and all the rest of it. You then made a choice. You're like, okay, I'm going indoors on my own to try and prove that the album that I think I have in me, the stories I want to tell, I can achieve this. Just tell me a bit more about the switch. I know that was when things got really bad for you and really, or at least really difficult. Maybe not bad because passing through what's happened has made you who you are, so that's good. But just tell me a little bit about the switch from performing, pushing stuff out, getting that feedback, to working on your own.
I think a lot of it was I had always dreamed of being a recording artist, but as a beatboxer, like, everybody knew me for that. Everybody knew me as a beatboxer and a live looper, and those types of music are amazing when you witness the performance live in the room, but when you listen to the recording, it's kind of, why am I listening to someone making noises with their voice? You know what I mean? So, no disrespect, it's an amazing art form, but I always felt like I had something in me that I wanted to try, but I knew it would be a risk because it would involve not beatboxing and not live looping and not touring. Admitting that I could sing and that I can sing was a big step, because I've always had this thing, I'm not. oh, I can't really sing. It's like, yeah, you can. You've been doing it during your shows the whole time, but because it was like under the guise of looping and beatboxing, I was like, well, I can do that, but I can't actually sing. And it's like, so I got vocal coaching, and I went and got some help, and learnt a lot about my voice. I'd been singing, like, I'd been trying to sing really loud and really high because I thought that's what everybody does. And actually I found that I have a really gentle, like I'm speaking right now, like quite a low, gentle voice. And once I started doing that in the studio, I was like, I actually like that sound. And it's like, I don't know, like just relearning or unlearning a lot of stuff. Like, so the three things for me, the insecurities were singing, songwriting, and producing. Yeah. Even though I've been doing them my whole career, I didn't think I would be able to do it for myself.
Perfectionism stands firmly in the way of creativity, in my view. And I don't know whether you describe yourself as a perfectionist, but I know for a fact that precision is hugely important to you, right? Because I've seen it, I've heard it, I've seen you working with other people and all the rest of it, and I know that precision. So, like, to what extent would you define that as perfectionism, and has it stood in the way? Yeah,
perfectionism is a brute, man. I've seen it stop so many people from being able to like be themselves, and in a way that's like stopping them from living, and it's really brutal. Like, I actually considered calling the album something to do with it. Like, I was trying to play around with words like imperfectionist or something like that, like embracing the imperfections. And I don't know, like it's hard. I don't think it ever goes away. Like, you know, I've sat speaking to people like you every month doing this live stream since the summer, and it's come up so many times, perfectionism, because it's like, if you are a creative, then you really, really care about your output. Yeah. So then you have to have a balance where you at some point say, this is good enough. Yeah. I think, was it Picasso who said, work is never finished, only abandoned? Someone like that said that. And it's like, yeah, I hear that. It's like, you've got to decide this is good enough to put out there, and it's not perfect, but I can balance that fear of imperfection with just actually shipping something. Yeah.
There's a song in, there's a musical that I really love by Stephen Sondheim, called Sunday in the Park with George, and there's a song in that called Finishing the Hat, and it's about George Seurat painting and doing pointillism, and it's this very obsessive song about it, and he's literally singing like dot, 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 like this, and it's really crazy. And then there's this moment at the end of the song, and the final lyric is, look, I made a hat where there never was a hat. And I've always absolutely loved that, because it describes the act of creation, and you can go a long way into the madness of it, but at the end, whether it's perfect or not, whether it's good enough or not, you made something that wasn't there before. And I think that, as I said before, like, our job is making things. You just got to make things, and you do probably have to abandon it. You know, you can't. It's not finished. You know, I want to play Silver next, because I didn't know that Silver was a superhero, and it's the first track on the album. And now that I know that Silver is like super slow, I want to play it. It's a great tune anyway. It's a great opening to the album, so enjoy this.
Thank you.
That's great, man. Is it a beatboxer? Is it a plane? No, it's Shlomo. That's fantastic, man. And I'm really glad because it's so filmic, that tune. It's such a great filmic. It paints lots of pictures in my mind when I listen to it. And that's the first track on the album. And I'm really glad that I now know that it's like Super You because I can. There's lots to play with and imagine there. Huge filmic thing. Now, we got a question from Jason Tresby. Says, Simon, what all-time music track touches you the most? And also, what music has been your inspiration? Thank you for that, Jason. And also, for people watching, listening, and you here this evening, we want your questions, so fire them in. But let's answer that from Jason Tresby. What track touches you the most?
Well, there's a jazz piano player called Keith Jarrett, who's been a huge influence on me through my father, who's a jazz musician. And I discovered this album in my teens, which I hadn't realised he used to play to me when I was a kid. We used to like sit and play chess, and he'd play this album. And I didn't hear it from like around the time of that trauma that I've been talking about until, like 10 years later when I was a teenager. And I heard this music and I was just like, I don't know if you've ever had that where you're just like, what is this? Why do I know this? Like, why is this so familiar? Like sometimes I get it if I watch like intros to cartoons on YouTube or something, like, oh my God, what is this? But it really freaked me out, and then I became quite obsessed with that music and with that musician, and it had a real profound effect to me and still does now. The solo piano track on my album is hugely influenced by Keith Jarrett, and that whole like jazz. I went crazy into jazz in my teens. I was like,
I'm glad to hear it, man.
That's all I wanted to do was be a jazz drummer.
Yeah.
So I was like out kind of 2 or 3 nights a week playing in bands and. Like kind of cutting my teeth as a musician and as an artist, and that really informed my whole career.
Is there a Keith Jarrett album in particular that you'd recommend people check out first, or just go and listen and see what takes your fancy?
This one that really hit me is called Changes, Keith Jarrett trio, but that might not be the most kind of what's the word, like easy to get into.
Yeah.
But the one that.
It's funny that, isn't it? Like, especially with jazz, jazz is a big passion for me now, and I'm always nervous about recommending stuff to people because, like, one wrong jazz album can put you off the entire genre for life. Yeah, I remember,
permanent damage.
I was into Miles Davis because someone recommended Doo-Bop to me. It was his last record with Easy Mo B, and I loved it. And then I saw he'd done this album called The Birth of the Cool.
Yeah, that's
Miles Davis had the best album titles ever. Like Bitches Brew, Kind of Blue, The Birth of the Cool. And I thought, The Birth of the Cool, that's so cool. And I bought it, and then I basically didn't listen to jazz again for about 5 years because it's hard. It's now I love it. It's great, But yeah, okay. So Changes, Keith Jarrett. Good.
Changes, but there's his most kind of popular one is called The Colne Concert, and that's really beautiful. Like solo piano in front of a huge audience, completely improvised, and his soul just comes out. But a lot of people can't bear him because he kind of sings along whilst he's playing, kind of goes whilst he's playing the piano, which some people find off-putting, but for me it's just part of the music. I love it.
Yeah. I can't believe, by the way, you think, or at least you thought, I don't think you do now, that you're not a singer. The vocals in there in that stuff are great. Now, the audience that we've got here with us, do keep the questions coming in online, but the audience that we've got here, has anyone got any questions? This is always a very tense moment if you're trying to drive something forward and everyone looks at you like, no, you do your work. Yes, thank goodness, a question in the front row. So, I'm going to repeat the question back so people know what it is.
Really big bands are in a lucky position to be able to record, say, 30 tracks and then cherry pick what's going to go on the album. Are there any tracks that didn't fit on this album that you're saving for later, or did you manage to record stuff that didn't make the cut?
Yeah, did I manage to record any tracks that didn't make the cut of the album? Yeah, loads, so many. Like, because I stumbled into a technique for writing, which I recommend to anyone who's creative. And I had a routine, right? And what I would do is every morning I'd set a timer for 20 minutes, 3 times. And so I'd spend the first hour of the day as like a writing warm up, and I'd have 20 minutes to write a track. And I had to stop when the timer went off. I wasn't allowed to come back to it until the next day. So every morning I'd write 3 tracks. Normally I'd write 2 absolute pieces of drivel, and then sometimes the third one would be good, but I wasn't allowed to look at it again till the next day. And if it was good, maybe the next day I could develop it a bit. But out of that, I wrote loads and loads and loads of what I still think is got a lot of really cool stuff. Which, yeah, a lot of it.
Did you define that system yourself, or did someone advise that? Where'd you get that?
I just made it up.
That's a good idea.
Thanks.
No, I mean, really, that's a great idea. Like I've been saying to myself and others for years, don't get it right, get it written.
Yeah.
Which is helpful, but it's kind of like, it's still a little bit vague, but literally like set the clock on it.
I am
that's great.
I've got problems with attention span, so I have to be quite kind of brutal in a way, which I guess, might have led to the problems I was having, but I do respond well to boundaries. So if I give myself this clear set of rules, I find that really helpful, because it's like you've only got 20 minutes. You don't have time to spend like 3 hours just getting the kick right or whatever, which you can lose weeks of studio time just basically dicking about. But if you've only got 20 minutes, like it's like go, get the melody down, get some lyrics down, just get something out in 20 minutes. And then if it's crap, it doesn't actually matter because you've only spent 20 minutes. But on the whole, you're much more likely to get some gems out of your brain in a kind of safe and kind way if you do.
I like that prolific process as well. I'm a big Prince fan. I'm now a big Damon Albarn fan. And with both of them, they're people, or Prince sadly gone, but people just made a lot of stuff. They understood that their job is make your stuff and then figure it out. And like I'm always fine. My son and I both love Gorillaz. There's so much to buy into. My boy's a teenager, amazing, and there's so much stuff going on there. And like, I'm always fine with it when I don't much like a Gorillaz record. The recent one, I think it was called the Now, and I was like, yeah. That's fine, it's fine. Same. But it doesn't matter, man. It doesn't matter. The next thing, Bowie was the same. Like I'm really grateful that Bowie did Tin Machine, and it's like the joke. He did something terrible. He made Tin Machine and it was shit. And all Bowie fans get to go, yeah, Tin Machine was shit. But it was really important. It was part of what Bowie was doing. He finished everything that he was doing, made something else. It worked or it didn't, depending on your point of view. And then on he went to the next thing. I love that setting the clock on writing stuff. All right, man, you gave me control of the iPad, not least because Shlo was fearful that he might stop his own tracks. It's kind of weird. I wanted to ask actually after the first one, how is it just sitting listening and having other people in a room listening?
It's simultaneously amazing and awful.
Good. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, but like I made a nearly 2-hour stand-up DVD and I've never seen it.
Right.
I've never watched it.
No.
Like I was there when it happened, so I know roughly what it's like. But people have come up and quoted bits to me, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have a clue. But I'm going to let you choose the next track. What do you want to? Okay. What do you want to play?
I'd love to play. How about?
You can't have Superhuman.
How about? Okay. All right.
That's last.
How about Invisible?
Great. This is the second track on the album, Invisible. We'll talk about this afterwards.
Didn't even know I'm wounded. I bled so gradually. On the outside I was perfect. Unpick normality. Invisible. Fragmented particles. They take it all. Treasure infected. And now we miss the sunset. And now we lost it all. And now the mouth's still open. infected. And now we miss the sunset. Erase the sun. And now we lost it all. Erase the sun. And now we mastered the long part. Erase the sun. How do we let? How did we let this go?
I'm hearing shades of Vangelis in the tune, man. I really like it. It's great. It's great. I want to come back to talking about Invisible, but there are a couple of questions that have come in. One is here. Says, do you think by crowdfunding your help that actually helped you with the process of writing, or was it an added pressure? So you crowdfunded the album, right?
We crowdfunded the album, but we didn't get the funds.
Uh-oh.
Because did you hear about Pledge Music, the platform that we used?
I didn't, but clearly someone in the room did, because they just went, whoa. Yeah. Either that or we're haunted.
A few of my lovely funders are here tonight, and
yeah,
Pledge Music turned evil.
They turned bad. What did they take the money?
They took everyone's money and ran off.
Take the money and run?
Which is not good, like, for the whole crowdfunding industry, really, but
ouch.
Specifically the artists, because like we are independent people. That's why we're using a crowdfunding platform.
Yeah.
And our livelihoods depend on our relationship with our audience. So, yeah, I'm glad it happened. I'm not glad they took the money, but I'm glad that we did the crowdfunding, because it showed me that people did believe in me, and like, you know, I had orders coming from all over the world, which was just insane. Like, watching these orders come in from like Korea and Japan and Australia and South America, like, it just, I was like, whoa, I had no idea I had this audience. So that was great. Incredible. And it just gave me the confidence and the belief that A, I could do it, and B, I had to do it, because these people
had
paid for it. So.
I don't want to get bogged down in like how we fund art and all the rest of it per se, but I am interested to know, because it's my opinion, but I want to know what someone who's in a different area of creative arts thinks about it. Like, I feel like too many artists at the moment are left feeling they have no choice but to give their work away for free, in the hope that one day it will have value. It feels to me like the internet as a project made a really fundamental mistake. I think free journalism is destroying journalism, and I worry that people giving away huge volumes of art for nothing is detrimental to the creative process. But what do you think? How is it for you?
I think that might be a bit of an old-fashioned way of thinking about it, man, because times change.
No, but I think you're right. I mean, I'm 10 plus years older than you, at least. Although I'd like to think that we still look somewhat similar, even though I'm carrying some pounds at the moment. People now think you're my son rather than my brother, which is upsetting. But I think it is an old-fashioned way. It's also like stand-up's disease. You know, we get quite used to show up, do gig, tell jokes, people laugh, get cash.
Yeah.
It's very transactional.
But there's something beautiful in stand-up in that you can make a DVD of it, you can monetize the recording of it, but eventually it comes down to being in a room with human beings, telling them a joke, them laughing, and then you're successful, and they pay you for that. Like, and it's the same with performers. You can't, like, although the internet has meant that, you know, the value of a product has completely disappeared. Yeah, you can't ever take away the value of an experience, and I think it's raised the value of those, which is which is really great.
I agree, man. And in terms of music, I mean, it happened, I think it was nearly 10 years ago that more money was being made through performance than through record sales. And people were up in arms about it at the time. But I was like, no, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
If we can now convince the people who go to those events to put their damn phones away for a second and just be in the room, you know, then that feels like a good thing to me. I know with stand-up, you know, just briefly on that, like, I think that the most successful comedy I've seen on screen has been where they've really cared a great deal about capturing that live experience. Whatever anybody thinks about Stuart Lee, the Stuart Lee comedy vehicle looked and felt like a gig. And I really like that. I also think Live at the Apollo does, actually, and it plays like a gig. Anyway, not about that. But I do want to... This question is about... I can't find this specific question, but I can definitely paraphrase it, which is about beatboxing.
Yeah.
There is some on the album, actually.
Yeah.
A little.
Even that track, Invisible, it all came out of beatboxing, and like there's loads of beatboxing on the track. It's more like the pepper rather than the steak. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, nice. All right, yeah, because the question fundamentally is like, are you done with that phase of your career? And having made this, do you see... I mean, I always hesitate when I say beatboxing to you because you've gone way further than beatboxing. Like, you from the very beginning, you were sort of beyond that. But where do you see that in what you make?
Michelle calls me a pendulum because I kind of swing. So
I assumed that was... I had no idea. Congratulations, man.
Had to go there.
That's my job.
Because I was like, no, I am a singer. I am a songwriter. You can't brand me. You can't just call me a beatboxer. You can't just call me a looper. And I basically didn't for like, you know, about a year or two. So any people here who came to my shows during those times would have hardly seen me do any beats or any kind of loops. And then I had this realization where I was like, oh, I can do both. And it's like, great, I still love doing it. I still love live looping. I still love beatboxing. So then, like, you know, I stopped touring my kids' show. I do this family show called Shlomo's Beatbox Adventure for Kids. It's such a joy, and I get so much from it. And I didn't do it for 2 years because I thought, oh, well, James Blake, you don't see him doing, like, kids shows for kids. You don't see all these, like, artists that I look up to. You don't see Massive Attack doing
a kid's show.
Like, I was like, I want to be all mysterious and, like, you know, artistic. And it's like, okay, I can do that with that album. But now I've started doing my family show again, and I'm so happy because I see these children being given the gift of music.
Yeah. Now, I want to know, does that, at least in part, the starting point, the inspiration for doing a family show, does that come from Biz Marquis's Beat of the Day?
Oh, that is so cool, that thing. But no.
All right. Okay. All right. We should tell people what that is.
Biz Marquis's Beat of the Day. Just type that into YouTube. Biz Marquis is like one of the original beatboxers, and what was the TV show? I can't remember. There's like a kids TV show that's a bit like Sesame Street but more crazy. Yeah, and he did this Biz Marquis Beat of the Day. Just Google it; it's amazing.
Yeah, it's very cool. All right, man. So, what are we going to play next? Heartbeat or The First Time? Oh, I did want to just quickly, let's talk about Invisible. Just tell me a little bit. There was the last track that we listened to. It's the second track on the album. Just tell me a little bit about why that track, what's in it, what it means to you.
It's the first one that I finished, and I kind of took it to Dom, and we finished it before I'd kind of really knew I was making an album. And I didn't really know what it was about. I wrote it, and then I listened to it afterwards, and I was like, oh shit, this is about recovery, and this is about a breakdown, and this is about like feeling like you're going to lose everything. And that really helped me kind of realize that's basically what I'd been writing about in various different ways to make the record. And that's what made me think, okay, this is a record, and it has a theme, and it has a story, and I need to finish it now. So and it's kind of got a real Arabic kind of feel to it. Like my background is my family's Arabic immigrants, and I grew up in a real kind of noisy environment, and that really came through in that track, and it was really fun to be able to do that.
Yeah. I'm interested, just talking about, like, when you mention recovery, I know what that means, you know what that means, but it'll mean a different thing to everybody who hears that word, right? If very grateful for a kickoff that mental health is a discussion that more and more people are having, men and women, and I think it's much needed. But obviously it means a million different things to a million different people and more. And everybody's roots, if not out, then at least through the challenges that they face, are different. But because you've made a body of work, this collection of tracks, an album, what would you say to people who, at least to people who are stuck maybe where you were, with perfection standing in the way of finishing a piece of work, fear of the creative process? What would you say to them, having made this piece of work and with the years you've put together of touring and making new shows?
Stop trying to finish, just try to start. I think it's so hard just to like admit that you can start and you can do it and it will be enough. And yeah, show it to someone who you trust. Like, don't try and, like, I think a lot of us get this. It's like, when this is done, then I'll show it to the world, and then that never happens. So change that to, I'll show this as it is to someone, and give yourself a date that you're going to do it, hopefully soon, like maybe today, and just get it into a state that's good enough for that person you trust, and you can say, Marcus, my bro, this isn't finished, but can you listen to this? It's so good. Such a great step to take. So I'd say, yeah.
Isn't that
suspend
weird?
The judgment.
That act of vulnerability, right, of offering something new up, which is very scary, weirdly scary, that act of vulnerability, every time you actually see it through, or at least in my experience, even if it was scary before, it sets you free from something every time you do it. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, that genuinely was no good. I'm glad to be done with that. And on we go to the next thing. Or there's something there, or it was right, it was wrong, and all the rest of it.
I think the hardest thing, right, when you're making stuff, you, especially if you do it the way I did when you isolate yourself, is you're asking the same question over and over. Is this good? Is this actually good? I have no idea, because like I say, I'm fluctuating between like I am God to I am an idiot, and it's like it's very, very hard. So definitely really, really helps to, even though it's scary, make yourself vulnerable, share it with people you trust, and then gradually make that circle bigger, like show it to more and more people, and refine it. And
it's funny too, isn't it? Like the great pieces of work, whatever they may be, they're defined by the people who made them and those who hear them or see them or whatever they may be. But like, none of them is perfect.
Yeah.
Absolutely none of them. And, you know, like Kind of Blue by Miles Davis is a very important album for me, millions and millions of people. And once he was done with it, like for Miles Davis, briefly, it was a millstone around his neck. And then he left modal jazz behind and moved on to something completely new, left it behind, you know. But it's funny that those ideas of like what's ideal and what's perfect, like it doesn't matter.
yeah.
So what are you going to make next?
Well,
Because you've done this now.
yeah.
Don't sit in this for too long.
Well, I'm making it into a show. Like, I've been touring the songs in a kind of concert form, but I just found myself wanting to talk about the stories. And then I've been doing it in clubs and pubs where half the crowd really want to listen and the other half want to get laid. So
There'll be some overlap there too. The people know that really listening intently is quite sexy.
But I found that really hard because I'm trying to sort of bare my soul about these really difficult topics, and so people weren't listening. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to make it into a one-man show. So I'm soon going to be announcing this, you know, properly. But I can tell you guys and the people watching the stream, I'm turning Surrender into a one-man theatre show. I'm taking it to Edinburgh Fringe, and I'm taking it on tour. And I'm really proud to be doing that. And it's kind of evolving out of this TED Talk. So I got asked to give a TED Talk, and it's called Social Media Saved Me from Suicide. It's a really heavy talk, but the process of writing it made me kind of crystallize the whole narrative into a short piece. And that's what I'm evolving back out into a 1 hour piece for the show. So that's my new kind of creative drive. I'm not quite finished with this project because, yes, it's an album and that's done and that's out and everybody can have it. But I also want to tell it as a story piece, like a narrative performance with the music and the words, and hopefully with the goal that people will walk away from the show feeling closer to each other and more inspired to A, be vulnerable, and B, look after each other. I feel like we could all do better with this. We can all take care of each other a little bit more by offering ourselves a little bit more. And that's really my dream, is for us to all start doing that together.
That's great, man.
Thank you.
I'm coming to see your show. You sold it to me. No, I'll definitely be there, man. I'm going up to Edinburgh. I'll be at the festival as well. We are so blessed to have that festival. Like, it's unprecedented in the history of the world. Biggest arts festival the world has ever seen, and the largest annual ticket selling event in the history of mankind.
Is that right?
Right here in the UK.
Huh.
What is still the UK for now.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Yeah, let's not get bogged down in that. All right, look, we need to wrap this up. So thank you, everybody who's come here this evening. Listen to the rest of the album. It's absolutely beautiful, fantastic. Thank you to people who've sent questions in as well. I hope we've answered at least a few of them. We're going to play out with Superhuman, which features Lost Raven and the London Contemporary Voices and Your Good Self. Before I play this, though, just talk to me about Superhuman, how you wrote this, what it means to you, and the stuff.
Superhuman, this song is my proper ode to addiction. This is about me just letting it out with my system, really. Like that feeling when you just feel like you're nothing. And I know we all feel it, and it's horrible when it comes, but this song felt so good to get it out. It's just so... I just felt like so badass, so empowered, and I could just embrace what feels like a really dark part of who I am and just be like, it's fine, that's who I am. Like,
oh yeah, man, if you can make use of your addict, oh
yeah.
Lord, there's some power there. I mean, think the lengths that your addict went to get the fix, right? Think how far you were willing to go to get that hit. Like, if you can weaponize that for good, it's absolutely incredible. I mean, Marvel's got nothing on us junkies. All right. Shlomo, massive congratulations, man. And also, just as a friend, thank you. Thank you for sharing this with us. You know, it's wonderful what you're doing, man. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for coming along. This track is Superhuman from Shlomo's wonderful album, Surrender.
One more face to pixelate, slip back disgraced, not thinking straight. I'm helpless and I obey my enemies. I'm helpless and I can't hide. No, I can't hide. I'm not right. Superhuman, superhuman. I can't be superhuman. One more chase, just drinking straight. Smoke's not erased, keep shifting shapes, and I'm helpless when I obey my enemy. And I'm helpless, so I fight myself till I sleep, and I can't hide. No, I can't hide. Losing days, but I can't escape the pain, and I'm not right. Superhuman, superhuman.
Thank you, guys. Thanks so much. Massive round of applause, please, for Marcus Brigstocke. What a
Thanks,
star.
Shlo.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me here, man.
Thank you to StarLane for letting us do it here tonight. Thank you very much, guys. Look up to Matt and Andrew, who are doing the cameras and the live streaming, and they've been doing We Are Listening with me every single month since August. It's amazing. Thank you, everybody, for watching and for supporting me. I'm really proud of all of you, and I'm really proud of myself, and I just feel like, yeah, this is just the beginning, honestly. We're going to go far. We're all going to go far. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you.
Hooray to that. Thanks, Shlo.
See you again. Take care. Thanks, very much.